All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, Rich Prado, owner of Play in School. Today we're heading down to Asheville, North Carolina to talk with our first Corbin, but not Tim. Corbin Weeks from, that's a terrible joke, isn't it? Corbin Weeks from Next Level Baseball, North Carolina. NLB is, I would say it's the northern affiliate of a Next Level Baseball that we know out of the panhandle of Florida. And we're going to get Corbin to tell us the whole story. Corbin, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Rich.
You know, I have to say, my 6-year-old tells me all the time, "You're bad. You got bad dad jokes, man. You got bad dad jokes." So when I crack a joke about not Tim Corbin on the show, I just have to acknowledge that that's a bad dad joke. So Corbin, tell us. I want you to tell us a story about how you came to be involved with NLB. Before we hit record, you said it was basically just a couple years ago. So it's pretty new to the North Carolina market. But I want to give you a chance to go further backwards and kind of introduce yourself to the audience, and give us that brief bio and walk us kind of through the your bullet points on the resume, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. Grew up in Fort Myers, Florida. Played some high-level baseball, and I went to Evangelical Christian School. Ended up going to Southeastern University for college. Played under the legendary Jason Beck. Had a World Series appearance. Won the Sun Conference in 2014. Had a couple other regional appearances in 15 and 16. After I graduated college, I ended up working for Perfect Game for a couple of years, traveling the country and doing some scouting and things like that. That right there really sparked my interest for coaching. And then I joined the staff at George Jenkins High School in Lakeland. We were nationally ranked by USA Today. I think we had 3 draft picks on that team, 2 to the Red Sox, 1 to the Florida Marlins. And then I took a head job at a smaller school right down the road called Mulberry High School, which was a tough job. We took a 1-win team to a 15-win team in 1 year. And then I realized my dream was getting to the college game. And at that point, Coach Beck was up here at Montreat College, and we stayed connected throughout the time, and I ended up here with him.
The network effect comes through again. Your coach that you played for is now your boss.
That is correct.
Gotcha. Hey man, I got to pause this 3 minutes in so I can let the puppy outside. Hang on, don't go anywhere, stupid dog. And we're back. Anybody with a young dog knows that it's either going to let him out or he's going to bark and bark and bark. So there he goes. He's out running with the dog in the backyard, the neighbor's dog behind us. All right. So again, man, I think this is just like for any kid, any parent, any adult who's listening. Your Rolodex, that's your currency. And so you played for a guy. You must have liked him. He must have liked you. A few years later, you're now on his staff. How did you? I actually want to go backwards, but I'm kind of stuck on this topic. How did you when you say I want to jump into college? Was he your first call? Like what else was there between him hiring you and you going, hey, college is something I'm interested in? What were those next few steps? Or was it literally just one step? I'm calling my old coach, done deal, I'm packing the car, I'm going to Asheville.
Yeah, so Coach Beck was always in my ear about coming up here, and it just didn't seem right. My wife and I, we had gotten married at the time and wanted to stay in Florida. And just kind of as things unfolded throughout my high school coaching career, I just felt the calling to move to the college game. And, of course, he was my first call. And it seemed like every 2 months or so he was down recruiting in Florida, and he'd come stay with me, and we just continued the conversation for probably about a year to a year and a half. And I just looked at my wife one day and I said, I think we need to make the move. And she said, let's chase your dream. And we moved up here, and we moved up here 2 months before COVID, and been here since.
Oh, man. Gosh, you guys might have been was there some second guessing when the season got shut down there in March of 2020?
I wouldn't say there was any second guessing. My wife, she's got a pretty good job here in town at the hospital. There was definitely some guessing about, what was going to happen within, our conference, within the NAI, what play looked like moving forward at that point. I don't think I was too worried about the school shutting down or anything like that. But of course, we had a job to do. And while the world was still shut down, we did everything that we could to promote our program, promote our school, via social media and YouTube and those kinds of things. And we were able to continue to recruit, and we actually brought in more guys in the COVID year than we did in any year prior. So one thing that Coach Beck always harps about is, what are we going to do when something changes? Are we able to take adversity and continue to be successful? And we just kind of took that approach, and we continue to get after it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Another really important lesson is pick a good spouse. For you coaches out there, find somebody that can support you, and it's a bonus if that person can find really good employment in just about any city, and it sounds like your wife did. So that's a pro tip for you right there. But I want to go backwards real quick, and you said when you were working for Perfect Game, and you were going out and seeing lots of baseball, lots of events. I'm assuming that actually sparked your interest into coaching. Like, was it because you were sitting on the outside of the fence that you yearned to be back on the field, or was it just being around the game? Like, how did that experience lead to the shifting gears from the scouting to the coaching?
Yeah, part of it was not really being, between the lines and things like that. But another big portion of that was seeing how many kids are getting bad information, seeing how many kids are losing chances because, one, they're not coached well, or two, they're not informed, or three, their parents have just never navigated the waters of high school baseball and recruiting and things like that. And, as a young guy, you think you can change the world. And, I realized that, I was able to contribute back to the game of baseball one guy at a time. And that was my goal, whether it was at a Perfect Game showcase or if I was out at the Evo Shield Nationals in Phoenix or wherever I was at Perfect Game. I tried to make a connection with somebody, whether it be a player, a coach, a parent, somebody. And really those relationships are what drove me to start my coaching career. Good.
Cool. That's good. I had a sort of a sneaking suspicion that a guy like you didn't want to be on the outside of the fence for very long. So in the beginning, before COVID, so right at the beginning of the 2020, you move up to Asheville. Things go sideways right at the very beginning of your season. And you were telling me before we hit record, it was about that time that you ended up hooking up with well, let me rephrase. It was about that time that you thought, hey, in addition to the college coaching, I might want to also get involved with travel ball. Talk about sort of your thought process and, how you eventually got hooked up with NLB.
Right. So it was March of 2020, and we took a spring break trip down to Florida with the college guys, and we were playing at St. Thomas University, and then we played Florida National University, and COVID was kind of ramping up at the time, but they still didn't bang our season, and we finished a doubleheader. Coach Beck gets a call, hey, bring the guys back. We need to cancel the season. And I remember we pulled over into a gas station, pulled our bus over. We got the guys off, and we said, hey, we're heading back to school. You guys got to pack your stuff and head home. And we got back the next day. The guys were gone. And I remember sitting on my couch saying, well, okay, what am I going to do? And I'd kind of tossed around the idea of travel ball and stuff like that. And the market here in Western North Carolina really needed a high-level showcase type of organization that had structure, that was affordable, but most importantly had credible people. And I looked at my wife and I said, I think I want to do it. And she looked at me and she said, well, you've been helping everybody else for the last 5 years. Why don't you do it yourself? Mm. And that was it. So I started putting the feelers out. And like I said, when I got with NLB, the vision, the morals, the values, everything aligned with what I wanted. And, the very first thing that I would say is, just building your team of people that believe in what you believe. You can't be unequally yoked. And so I hired a coaching staff of all college guys. And I thought that was a big portion of what I wanted to do. And I think that high school coaches bring a tremendous value to this game. But I think there's a difference in perspective when you surround yourself with guys that are living and breathing what you're doing every single day. And a good friend of mine, Scott Considine, he's an assistant coach at Southern New Hampshire University, and they're a D2 powerhouse. And he coaches my upper class team. And I've made some decisions, and he's like, dude, what are you doing? But I understand that we love what we're doing. We love our guys, and we want to do what's best for them. I have another one of our assistant coaches. He coaches in my 17U team. I coach the 16U team. I have another guy that played at Western Carolina. He coaches the 15U team. And then our head coach, Jason Beck, he helps out with NLB. And what I try to do is my goal is to continue to bring positive voices into our program from guys in the college game. And I just truly believe when you surround yourself with people that believe what you believe and they have their head on straight, what you can do is endless.
So true. So true. Now, one thing I want to point out, you sort of alluded to it. The Western North Carolina market is not the same as Central and Eastern North Carolina, is it?
Very different.
Very different. Like I would border on dramatically different. And if you look at a lot of the sort of like the big guys, the big nationally known organizations, they don't have a huge presence out there. I think maybe they've gone out there, maybe the population density just didn't work for them. Maybe they might go out there and scoop up a player here or there, but they didn't really have like a huge presence locally in that market. So I got to imagine that's probably a pro and a con for you, because like they've gone in and tried it and never didn't plant their flag, so to speak. But now you're there and you live there. Like has it been easier than you thought, or has it been harder than you thought?
To be honest with you, Rich, I wouldn't say that it's either. And I think that people in Western North Carolina wanted a new perspective. And, I was new to the area, and I built some relationships with some people. And when I first started NLB, I brought in kids from 13 different states, as far west as Texas,
Whoa.
As far north as, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, as far south as Miami.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So I don't throw around the term national team. If we're talking about geographically, yes, we're considered a national team. But there was a need in this area for someone to come in with a fresh set of eyes and bring something new to this area. And what happened was a lot of these guys that are extremely good in our area, they're being outsourced. They're having to go to all these different places to get the experience that they're looking for.
Yeah.
Well, we came to town, and those guys are beginning to come back. One, because we're affordable. Two, because the guys that I have involved in the organization. And three, we've got a beautiful facility up here at Montreat College that we're able to utilize. And we've seen an influx of kids coming back to the area.
Do you? So I can almost imagine that first couple years, like you talked about, some of the really good players are probably already spoken for. They're hooked on with some of these other clubs around the region, which leaves you, in short supply locally, which probably motivated you to go out and about. But 13 different states represented. That almost feels pretty intentional. Was that part of the plan going in, saying, "Hey, we're just going to go find some good baseball players. I don't care what area code or what state they're from."
Yeah. Everything that I do with NLB is to replicate what the player is going to get at the college level, from preparation to gameplay, the recruiting piece. Everything that they'll experience with NLB will be symmetrical with the college game. And one of the big pieces that makes college baseball so special is you've got a roster of 40 guys that are coming from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a ton of value of when you take kids, at 14, 15, 16 years old from all over the country and you put them together, they learn how to communicate. Right? They learn how to overcome adversity. They understand that where they're from and where another guy's, his household is a lot different, whether it's, income status or weather or all of these different things. And I think there's a ton of value in being able to take those guys, put them together at a young age and really teach them how to compete. And it really opens their eyes to how much good baseball is out there. I think one of the biggest kind of blindsides parents get is their kids are really good for their town or they're really good for maybe their region, but they're competing against guys from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Here at Montreat College, we've got one kid from the Bahamas. We've got two from Australia. We've got one from Canada. We've got one from Tokyo, Japan. We've had guys from Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic. So we recruit guys from all over the place. And it is a culture shock when a kid goes to college and he sees all of these different guys that might not even speak his own language. Yeah. So the sooner that I can incorporate that and have those guys adapt to that kind of mindset, the more success they're going to have in the long run.
I love it. I'm just sitting here thinking about, some kid from the hills of Asheville getting to rub elbows with some kid from downtown Miami. You know what I mean? What a difference. Just their upbringings, their backgrounds are so different. And then you put them on a ball field and let them get to know each other a little bit. It's nothing but good. It's so positive. I like it, man. I'm getting excited talking about that. That's good. So you got cranking with NLB 2020. So this past summer was your second summer on the field and second fall on the field. Is that accurate?
So this will be our second summer.
This will be your second. Okay, because you didn't play that first summer. Okay, I got you.
Right, yes, sir.
Right. Good. Okay, got it. And so far so good. How would you grade the first year and a half?
It's been a ton of fun. I would say one thing that I take pride in is being who I say I am. And that's something I preach to our coaches and our players. And, we treat every kid with respect, every family with respect. And, very rarely does it not work out for a kid in our organization. But I tell them, every kid, the same exact thing. Man, you got to plant your roots. You got to be resilient, and you got to fight, right? If another guy is playing over you, right, don't have mom and dad call me. Right? I understand it's travel ball and there's a level of play and things like that, but you got to get better. You got to want to compete, because when you go to college in 2 years, your head coach is not answering the phone for your mom or your dad. and things like that. And so if there's anything that I want my guys to take out of their NLB experience, is I want them to be tenacious. When they step on their institution, when they go to their college field and their first semester freshmen, I want them to be dogs. Mm-hmm. I want that coach to know that kid came as advertised, right? I told that coach exactly what he was going to get, and he got it. And there's a tremendous level of accountability in our program, right? Because when I pick up the phone and I call a buddy of mine who's a coach at another school, and I say, hey, I got a kid that's a great fit for your school. Well, if that kid goes there and he sucks, or he's drinking, or he's smoking, or he can't make grades, that affects my relationship with that coach. Mm-hmm. So every single kid in my program understands, right, we are in this together, and their name means something, the name on the front and the name on the back. Yeah. And I even take that into account when one of my guys calls me and says, hey, coach, I got a buddy that wants to play NLB. And I vet them. I say, okay, is that kid what I'm about? Is that kid reliable? Is that kid going to be on time? Is that kid going to be prepared? Because I want our guys to understand that their name means something too. When they put their neck on the line for somebody else, it means something. Yeah,
good stuff, man. I was sort of curious. Have you had your first NLB guy sign at Montreat, so that you end up having these guys for, you could be with the same kid 5 or 6 straight years?
Yes, so we had 4 last year,
hey.
And I think this coming summer we have 6 or 7.
Ooh, so all right, which sort of, I think we need to kind of pause here and talk about, you're in an NAIA school, which has, I would say, fewer restrictions than a Division I program does. So that, and I'm sort of just making it up on the fly, but that's the big part that allows you to coach travel baseball, correct? There's no restrictions. Right. You wouldn't be able to do this if you were coaching next door at UNC Asheville. They've got certain restrictions in place that prevent a Division I full-time coach to also coach travel baseball. So at an NAIA school and a Division III school, there's less restrictions that so you'll see coaches from those levels jumping in with at the travel ball level. So you said 4 the first year, 6 the next year. This is kind of, hey, I like this. It's kind of a little self-fulfilling prophecy. You get the good guy in at the NLB, you build a good relationship, and you hang on to him through college. Now, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's worked out pretty well. You don't have to, obviously. If I bring a guy in, I'm not necessarily giving him, the sales pitch to attend Montreat College. And I even had 3 guys last year that we offered here at Montreat, and they chose other institutions. But they said, Coach, I love you. I want to play for you this summer. Mm-hmm. And it's a great relationship with those guys. And Coach Considine from Southern New Hampshire, he coaches that 18U team, and he's ex-military. He's as straight as it gets, and I want those guys on that 18U team to understand, man, you're like, what, 60 days, 30 days from moving into your college dorm. Mm. Like, this is the guy that's going to be coaching you, right? Because when I'm with NLB and I'm with our 18U team, I'm a big supporter. I'm a big advocate for them. I want to be in the dugout. I want to help change the way they think. And, Coach Considine coaches those guys, and he coaches them extremely hard. And I'm in the background just supporting those guys because they're going to get enough of me when they step on campus, that August. And there's a lot of value when other guys are able to contribute their knowledge into each player.
Okay, you've mentioned that he's from Southern New Hampshire a couple times. Now, maybe I missed the boat. Is there a Southern New Hampshire University in North Carolina, or is he actually up in New Hampshire?
Yes, he is at their campus in New Hampshire.
Okay, that's what I assumed. But sometimes you never know. Sometimes you see like a Miami of Ohio, right? Like so right. Sometimes names aren't necessarily tied to geography. So how did you trick this guy from New Hampshire into hooking on with you in Western North Carolina for the summers? That's a pretty good get.
Yeah, so Scott's actually been one of my best friends the last couple of years, and we met the summer of 2020. We were down at Baseball City in St. Petersburg, Florida, and we were at a big tournament, a big showcase, and I just got to know him and kind of shared my vision with kind of what I was thinking, and he looked at me and he said, "Dude, let's do it." And I just kind of took it in strides, and I called him, about a month later, and I said, "Hey, man, I'm for real about this thing. Do you want to do it with me?" And he was like, "Dude, I'm in." And Scott, his roots are back here to Western North Carolina. He was a Legion guy in the Burnsville area, and then he got into the college game at Kentucky Christian University. Then he made a move to West Virginia Tech, and then now he's at Southern New Hampshire.
So does he come and live down in the Asheville area all summer, or is he just each weekend just hop on a plane to meet the team?
Yeah, so he brings his wife, he brings his son, and we all stay together.
Oh, love it
when we can. It's a good time. Just really building that camaraderie, and I've got a lot of young coaches too, guys that are fresh out of college or starting their coaching careers, and it just allows for those guys to see, what a healthy coach looks like, what a healthy coach in marriage looks like. So there's a lot of intangibles and things that we offer our players, but my young guys get to see as well, as they start their coaching journey.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Hey, I'm keeping an eye on the clock. I know we've got a time that we've got to head out in a little bit, but there's a few questions sort of from that list of my sort of regulars that I want to make sure I ask, because I think you're going to have a kind of an interesting perspective. The first one is I want to know what book, what resource, which website, what movie you think every coach should be reading or watching.
Yeah, I think every coach, every parent, every player should read The Mental Game of Baseball. I try to have my guys read it as freshmen. I've kind of steered away from that.
Who wrote that one? That's not. Gosh, is that? Wait, are you referring to Heads Up Baseball by Ken Ravizza by any chance?
No, there's a
different one.
It's called The Mental Game of Baseball. I'm looking on my shelf right now.
The Mental Game of Baseball.
I don't see it up here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called The Mental Game of Baseball. And Coach Beck made me read it when I was a freshman. And it kind of changed the way that I took in adversity and understanding, a 300 hitter, in baseball is going to make the Hall of Fame. But, if you get 3 out of 10 on your math quiz in school, you're going to fail. And understanding that this is a game of failure and what it looks like to be a good teammate when you are riding the pine, or how to be a good teammate when you are 0 for 10. How are you still going to contribute on the offensive side or the defensive side? And I think every kid should read that book.
All right. I recognize. I pulled it up on Amazon. I totally recognize it. The cover that I've seen probably most commonly is it's kind of got a red banner across the top. The Mental Game of Baseball is in red and blue, and it has a red, blue, and green ball on the cover, written by H.A. Dorfman. I am familiar with this book. Cool. Good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, and the second book I would say is John Gordon's The Energy Bus. And this was another book that I read when I was at Southeastern. And it's pretty well known, but teaching guys not to be energy vampires, just to be able to give more than you take, and not being able to suck the life out of your team with a bad attitude or with poor play and things like that. I think that book is pretty awesome.
Good stuff, man. Hey, listen, in the interest of time, I'm going to skip over to what's normally my last question here, because I have a feeling you're going to have some pretty good ideas, and this might take us up to the end of the conversation. If I handed you a magic wand, what's one change that you think could be made to travel baseball that would have the biggest positive impact?
Yeah, I've actually thought about that a lot since you sent me that question. I think the hardest part about travel baseball now compared to 20 years ago is there's so many options, and you don't know who to believe. I just had a kid on campus here at Montreat from California, and his mom was, telling me that, every hitting guru in the country somehow makes their way to Southern California. And it's just become an idea of we can pay the most and our kid's going to get the most out of it. And it's completely backwards. And, if I could change one thing about travel baseball as a whole, it would definitely have to be the level between affordability and exposure. And even to take that a step further, I would say having parents understand realistically where their kid is and where he's going. And that's one thing that I try to keep in perspective for every kid in my program, right? Here's where I think you can play. Here's where you're at right now. Here's our roadmap, and here's how we're going to get to where we're going. And, a lot of people, they just get shortchanged. They play for teams that charge them, a ridiculous amount of money. Who knows who their coach is going to be. You got to pay more for the recruiting help and things like that. And, I step back and I look at that, and I just think about what you're doing for the game of baseball. So I've got a kid that played for me last year, and his mom just said, look, I can't swing it. I can't do it this year. And I said, I understand. I will do everything in my power to help your son go to college because he's trustworthy. He has good grades. He's on a straight path. I wish if I personally could wave a wand and change something about travel baseball, it would be that parents knew exactly what they were getting into and that the players would actually know what it takes to play at the collegiate level.
Yeah. The topic of affordability slash fundraising has been brought up before. And I'll ask you, I'll pose it this way. I think we could make it free for every single kid in the country, right? Like fundraising, you just crush the fundraising. Every kid is free. Is that does that solve the problem? You see where I just get a little frustrated about it because then here's my point. Why I'm getting frustrated a little bit is I feel like we live in such a moment of entitlement. So if we made it free for everybody across the board, would that be a net positive, or would that end up creating other issues? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think making it free for everyone is the completely wrong outlook.
Yeah.
So I think that players need to understand that they need to have skin in the game.
Oh, perfect.
Right?
Yes.
We are providing a platform for them. Mom and dad are providing financial resources for them and travel and hotels. But a lot of times you sit back and say, okay, what does this kid have invested? Well, he works hard and little Johnny goes to his lessons, but there's nothing tangible. So one thing I'm a big advocate of is we do a fundraiser every year with NLB, here in North Carolina, and we do an email-a-thon. And I tell my parents, some of you guys, you are lucky enough where you can cut a check and you can be done.
Yeah, be done, yeah.
But have your kids sit down and make him put in these emails. Make him put in those phone numbers. He's got to have some skin in the game. And It's the same thing that you see at the college level, right? You give a kid everything, right? Let's say you compensate a kid, right, with his scholarship money, and you take care of him, and the kid has nothing invested, well, then he's late to class. He's late to practice, right? It doesn't mean as much.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the guys that care the most are the ones that have the greatest risk, the ones that are first-time college graduates, the ones that are getting on a boat from an island to come to America to pursue their education. I think that there's a lot of validity in understanding that the players have to have skin in the game.
The trick is figuring out what that means for each kid. It might be a little different for each kid, isn't it?
Of course, yeah. So one thing I do from our standpoint is make your kids sit in front of the computer, put in those emails. And if he can't do that, that shows you what's invested. And some parents will say, well, that 2 hours, I could have little Johnny, at another hitting lesson. Well, in reality, little Johnny's going to get a life lesson from sitting in front of that computer instead of another hitting lesson that he's going to have next week.
And to be honest with you, I'm intimately familiar with the type of fundraiser you're talking about, and I love those. I think they are the smartest form of fundraising right now. Compare that to, let's see, probably August of 1997, when I was heading into a Division I program. Okay, I played at the College of William and Mary. We had to fundraise. You know what our fundraiser was that summer? I had to go knock on doors and sell magazines. Like it's a little more sweat equity than some teenage kid punching in an email address and a phone number on a computer. Like that's not super hard. It's not a tough bar to cross. So if a kid struggles with crossing that bar, that's not probably a good sign for that kid moving forward.
Right.
Oh, yeah, man.
And I tell my parents too, from an accountability standpoint, take a step back and just observe your son. Because if you're having to pull him off the couch or pull him off the PS5 and make him go do these things, his career is going to be short-lived. And if he's lucky enough to make it to college, his college career is going to be short-lived. Right? Be realistic. And I had a parent last year. I said, ma'am, your son doesn't want to play baseball. Ooh. He told me, but he doesn't want to tell you. Save your money and go on a cruise.
Bingo.
And, she looked at me, and I'm like, you don't understand. The amount of time you will have on a vacation together, you'll understand why your son doesn't want to play baseball anymore. And, I just think that there's so much pressure on kids from social media and COVID and roster spots and everything else that encompasses the world of baseball right now, that kids, they really don't know how to navigate these things. So, my recommendation to every player, every parent of a travel ball guy is just close your circle with people that know what they're doing, people that you trust, and people who have your kid's best interest in mind. Yeah.
That is a wonderful statement to bring this conversation to a close. Corbin, man, I really appreciate you coming on today. Hopefully you and I can keep in touch and maybe bring you back on again another time. Are there any final comments you feel like you need to get off your chest to any parents, players, coaches who still might be listening?
Yeah, first I'd like to I just like to thank some of the people that poured into me. Our head coach Jason Beck, Ryan with NLB, he's been a huge supporter. He's a stern guy, but I love our friendship, and I know he's always got my back. I want to thank Coach Considine, Coach Payton, Coach Drayton, Coach Fricks, Coach DeArmas, and all the guys that coach my NLB teams. And then just my past and future players. Like, they don't realize it, but us young guys are growing up at the same time they're growing up, and we're trying to figure this thing out. As just like they are, and we don't get it right all the time, but we do everything with their best interest in mind. And when you do that, I think God blesses you, and everything else takes care of itself.
For sure. With that, don't hang up. I'm going to end the recording, but don't hang up, man. I really appreciate your time today.